Santos scandal. The newly elected congressman from New York reportedly now under federal investigation after admitting he fabricated parts of his past during the campaign. That includes stories about his heritage, education, and professional history. Joining us now to discuss Santos's fate in Congress is Democratic strategist Crystal Knight and Republican strategist Michael Wilkerson. Thank you both for being with us. Michael, I'm going to start with you. Is Santos a problem for Republicans, especially after the party underperformed in the midterms and while Kevin McCarthy is still in a fight to be Speaker of the House?
Of course, it's a problem. You know, I know George. I like George. I believe he cares for the people of New York, but this is unacceptable. And by doubling down on the problem, by instead of just coming out and saying it's a lie, calling it mistakes. Look, a mistake is you get off on the wrong exit on I-95. You drink too much eggnog. It is not fabricating your entire life story. So it's absolutely a problem, and it's unfortunate.
Crystal, Santos did apologize in an interview this week. Let's listen to what he said.
And I made a mistake. And I think humans are flawed, and we all make mistakes, Tulsi. I think we can all look at ourselves in the mirror and admit that once in our life we made a mistake. I'm having to admit this in national television for the whole country to see, and I have the courage to do so because I believe that in order to move past this and move forward and be an effective member of Congress, I have to face my mistakes, and I'm facing them.
What do you make of his defense? Michael already mentioned that he's calling it a mistake, is a mistake, but what kind of response is this getting on the Hill?
Well, it appears to be intentional misleading, and that's different than just making a mea culpa or an innocent mistake. When you misrepresent things that are on your resume that voters likely maybe they use your credentials to elect you or to consider their vote for you, that is intentional. It feels intentional. It feels like it's misleading, and it doesn't appear that his apology will suffice for sitting members of Congress, which is why we're already seeing people saying that once he is sworn in, that they will recommend the House ethics expel him. And so he really won't have a good tenure in his first term of Congress, and he likely will face a tough reelection if he is successful in fulfilling his entire term.
Well, I think the biggest issue is if he lied about something as simple as job definitions. I mean, he apparently he says he embellished where he worked. He was a contractor with the companies that he put on his resume versus actually working for them. He said that he was Jewish, like in quotes, versus being an actual Jew, but there are questions about that. Michael, there are a lot of people saying that Democrats have just as many lies and embellishments, but is that justifiable? Let's watch this clip from last night's Cuomo.
George Santos represents American politics, the worst parts of American politics, but he's no different than Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the House Democrats, who is an election denier. No different than Hillary Clinton, who said a couple of years ago, President Trump was not legitimately elected. Bill Clinton, Barack Hussein Obama, Michelle Obama, all of them rejected the voices of the American people.
So, I mean, you can see across the board different instances of people doing things that are, beyond the pale. But for this particular situation, do you think it really merits an investigation at the federal level? Michael?
So now we get to the heart of the issue. I write in my new book, Why America Matters, we have a crisis of institutions, and point out that the trust in Congress is at its lowest level ever. Somewhere around 15 to 20% of Americans trust their Congress. Most of us do not. And this is an example of the reason. We have got to get back to a level of integrity, honesty, and trust of our elected officials. And no, this does not do anything to help it. If there have been, for example, financial crimes or other things committed, then of course they need to be investigated.
Crystal, he was duly elected. The Nassau County DA is investigating him. She happens to be a Republican and says she will prosecute any crime she uncovers if there are any. But again, what he is lying about isn't criminal behavior, but what kind of charges could actually oust him from Congress?
Well, I think the charges that could oust him is if there are any financial mishandling that happened during his election. Because when you're running a federal election, you have to report, the money that you're raising, the money that you're spending. And so if there's something there, it surely will be discovered. But I think the other thing that we have to consider is, elected officials have a moral compass. We are not the judges of their moral compass. They have to, make those determinations for themselves, but they play out their lives lives in the public square. And so when you sign up to run for office and you take, positions like Santos has taken with, misleading, in details about his resume, about where he's worked, about his, ethnic background. Those are things that, just like Michael stated, they don't make voters trust you anymore. They don't make your incoming colleagues likely to trust you or want to work with you on a respective committee. And so you're setting yourself up for failure before you even begin the job.
It's going to be interesting to see what voters think about all of this. I know we are talking to some people in New York about what their opinions are. And whether, again, if he's willing to lie about something as small as a resume, which is actually a big deal, will he lie about anything else? Michael and Crystal, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Checking on.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.